I am so excited and thrilled that I get to be here today with one of my very favorite people on the planet. Lynne, thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely love being with you in any situation and circumstance.
And I love being with you. So it's a mutual love fest right now, right here, a tsunami of love.
I love that. All right. Well, Lynne, I want to start off just by you have an amazing life. I have shared that you and I have gotten to be in many, many situations together, and we're in a women's group together. And so I know your life. I know your life story. And what one of the things that's so striking to me is how you kind of had, a good life, but you just catapulted it into what I call the miracle zone, a committed life. And maybe you could share with us the story of the before and then what happened during that shift and how that put you in the miracle zone.
Well, it's a wonderful question. And I love that you call it the miracle zone and that you've named it the miracle zone and that you declare the miracle zone and that you create a clearing for the miracle zone, because otherwise, sometimes we don't recognize the power of a shift in our own life unless we anchor it by saying so. So I just want to thank you for the great work you do. But when you look back at your own life, as you're inviting me to do, there are these moments where something reveals itself that was probably always there, but it becomes available, becomes accessible. You begin to connect with it. And I call that when I realized that I wanted to commit my life to something larger than my own life starring me. And, when you're growing up, you're all about whether you're, getting an A's or B's or C's or D's in school and whether or not the kids like you or whether or not you're pleasing your parents or whether or not you can get away with something and, without your brother getting involved. All the things that go on that are kind of like, that at a certain point, you really want to make a difference with your life. You want to matter. And yet you've got to earn money. You got to go to school. You got to find your mate. You got to have kids. All of that is so time consuming. But something happens when you discover, oh, my life is not just for me. My life has been given to me and I can give it. In other words, as Brother David Stendhal-Ross says, life is such a blessing, such a gift. And if you see it that way, when you feel blessed to be alive, then you want to use your life to bless other people and bless the world. And somewhere along the way, that really showed up for me through the Hunger Project, when I realized that I could make a significant difference in ending world hunger. And that was possible because of the old EST training, which became landmark, and my relationship with the great Buckminster Fuller and John Denver and Werner Erhard, who founded the Hunger Project, which is a commitment to end world hunger back in 1977. And I didn't even think about it. It just swept me off my feet. Could I make that kind of a difference with my life? Could I participate in something with that monumental? Could I actually, my little life be devoted to something that, that noble, that extraordinary? And so I just went for it. And I don't know that I even thought about it. It kind of swept me off my feet. And from the moment that I made the commitment to something larger than my own life, the world started to open up and become miraculous. And that's really what I think your teaching is so beautiful, because the relationship that showed up to support me, the capacities I found in myself that I didn't even know I had, the courage I found that I didn't realize was available, the voice that I started to have, the words that started to come to me. It was almost as if something started speaking through me that allowed me to be the instrument of something way greater than myself. And when that happened, also the noise in my head about whether or not it was pretty enough or cute enough or thin enough or all the stuff that we do about trying to be enough this or enough that started to calm down. It wasn't gone. I wish I could report that, but it was in the background instead of the foreground like this. And what was in the foreground was a commitment to end world hunger and be useful. And so I didn't have time to entertain all this noise. And that's part of the miracle zone too. Just letting go of the doubts, the fears, the insufficiency, the I'm not good enough thing, and just get on the playing field and play your heart out. And it's fulfilling and fun and exciting, and miracles abound. So that's my story.
And Lynne, it's such an amazing story, and you've done phenomenal things. You did phenomenal things with the Hunger Project, and since then you've gone on and done amazing things with the Pachamama Alliance, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But I can imagine people thinking, as I would think, that's a luxury, you know. And I don't have the time. I've got too much going on, and how could I possibly do that when I've got to deal with paying the bills? And I think it's important to share that you did this when you had 3 young children. And
Right.
maybe you could share about how you did that in the midst of having 3 young children, and how we can do that in the midst of dealing with the things we need to take care of for our own families.
Well, I love the question because it's so relevant to everybody listening and relevant to me. At the same time, when we get caught in how am I going to do it, rather than that I'm going to do it, we get stuck in a sort of lateral loop. You don't need to know how you're going to do it in order to commit to it. In fact, it's sort of the other way around. Once you make a commitment, that which you didn't even know was available starts to show up. The how presents itself rather than you have to figure it out in your head. And we all think that, once I've got it all together and I know exactly who I am, and I know about this, and I'm educated and I'm briefed and I'm ready and I'm exactly the way I need to be, then I can make a big commitment. And I used to think that too, but actually I found, at least for me, and I can't claim this for anybody but myself, but I do recommend it, is that once you make the commitment, then the pathways start to show up. Not before that, but once you make it. I mean, I didn't know how to end world hunger. I couldn't even spell hunger. But when I made the commitment to end world hunger, which was completely illogical, completely inconvenient, I had 3 little kids. I was a substitute teacher. I had started a school. My husband was, starting to succeed in business. He needed me at his side. I was like, how can I do this? If I'd stopped myself by that, I wouldn't have made the commitment. But once I made the commitment, then things started to show up. The perfect nanny showed up, for example. My friends started to be so inspired by what I was doing, they wanted to join me. My husband, who, I was sort of at the feet of trying to keep him and his career, fed and watered by looking good at his side and having the right clothes on and having the right dinner parties, was so proud of me that he got behind me in a way that I had always been behind him. And we were then, kind of co-equal partners in him doing what he was doing. I was doing what I was doing. But the context that our life was about ending world hunger gave us both such a lift. And suddenly the right people showed up. And, I was raised as a Catholic. I would have done anything to orchestrate my way to India to work with Mother Teresa, because she was, the living saint of my time, still is considered that, even though she's passed away. But I found myself at the feet of Mother Teresa, but I couldn't have orchestrated that. In other words, what I'm trying to demonstrate is that the commitment that you make comes back and reaches into your life and turns you into the person you need to be to fulfill it, rather than you're the person you need to be to fulfill it before you make the commitment. It's kind of backwards, but it's the other way around. And the how, if you don't know what the how is, put that aside, make the big commitment, and really with your heart and soul. And then the hows start to show themselves, like myriad of pathways start to show up. It's actually completely miraculous. It is the miracle zone.
So clearly, and as you so beautifully speak about in your book, Living a Committed Life, living a committed life is a pathway, an important pathway to living in the miracle zone. So how do people find what is it that they are inspired to commit to? So everybody who's listening to this, what do they do?
I know that you're so good at formulas. Number one, number two, number three. I'm not so good at that. But here, I would tell you a couple things. First of all, you can find it by your body will tell you, kind of, if I can put it this way, what breaks your heart and what makes your heart sing. Often what breaks your heart and what makes your heart sing are related and can come together in a kind of mission for a bodhisattva kind of servant to a higher purpose for life. It can also be, there's clues if you look at your childhood. So if you were the kind of kid who on the playground couldn't stand it when you saw somebody being bullied, it might be that you are someone who stands up for peace and freedom for all people. Or if you're the kind of person who on the volleyball or the kickball team, you chose the least able person to be on your team first so that they didn't feel left out, then maybe your commitment is to a world of inclusion and belonging for everybody. The kind of commitment I'm talking about is a commitment that's not a goal. It's not something you can measure and check off and say, done, been there, done that. It's the kind of commitment like bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet, which is a commitment that I've made. It's not something I'll ever check off this lifetime. I can't, say I did that. It's something you really won't even get credit for, but something that you stand for in a way that starts to shape the way you make choices, the way you live your life, the way you find your way. It might be, in your case, this beautiful work you do with Happy for No Reason, knowing that happiness is not the function of circumstances. No, it's a commitment you make to respond to life in a way that generates not only your own happiness, but happiness for other people. That's a commitment that you can't check off that every place you go, you're going to make everybody happy and you're going to be happy. But it's a clearing. It's an intentionality. It's a way of living. And that the commitment you've made to make available the miracle zone, which is available to every single living being on this planet. And you know that. So you live in the miracle zone, you make it available to people, and you stand for it. So you're such a beautiful example. And those are the clues from your childhood. And then you're one more thing I'll say, the heroes and heroines that you most admire are clues. The people that you've always admired, like for me, Mother Teresa, for me, Jane Goodall, for me, Maya Angelou, Oprah. These people are people who are icons for me, and it gives me some clues about what I care deeply about. So those are some clues. I can't give you a formula. I wish I could.
That was perfect because it's you are the living example of it, Lynne. And I feel it whenever I'm in your presence. And we can tell when we're in the presence of someone who is living a committed life, taking a stand for what really matters to them. It's contagious. You can feel it. My father was that. My father was
Yes.
a dentist. He loved doing that. He loved art. He loved beauty. He became a master needle pointer. But in his presence, he was a stand for people having lives that were fulfilling. And he was always working at how he could do that in whatever way he could.
Exactly.
And that's what it's the space from which you're coming.
Exactly.
So,
Your dad's such a great example. I love it when you talk about him.
yeah. Thank you. So, Lynne, you've also do this amazing work around money, and you have the Soul of Money Institute. And I think a good part of the message that you speak about also is where we come from in our lives in terms of sufficiency. And because when we have a mindset of not enough, we're never going to be living in the miracle zone. When we have a mindset of sufficiency, we're always living in the miracle zone.
Exactly.
Maybe you could share a little bit about that and your sufficiency principle I just love. I don't remember it word for word, but I love it every time I hear it.
Well, you don't need to remember because you are it, so no problem. First I'll say that the mindset of the status quo, the water we swim in, the society, the culture we live in, is a culture really promoting scarcity, promoting that you're not enough, it's not enough, there's not enough, we need more of everything all the time, everywhere. The scarcity mentality, there's not enough to go around, someone's going to be left out, so you have to accumulate as much as you can to make sure that you and yours are not left out. That mindset, it's not like we consciously think that, but it's from whence we think. It's part of the cultural norm that we live in. There's not enough, it's not enough, I don't have enough, you don't have enough, we don't have enough, we got to get more. And there's sort of three toxic myths, I'll just remind you and everybody, that make up the mindset of the modern world, which is there's not enough, more is better, and that's just the way that it is. And that there's not enough, more is better, and that's just the way that it is, are the three toxic myths of a culture, a consumer culture devoted to the mindset of scarcity, which robs us of our experience of our own fulfillment. But that mindset is not ours. It's the mindset of the culture. And we can disaggregate ourselves from that mindset. And when we do, it's when you hold, when a little baby puts their little fist around your finger, you're not thinking there's not enough, it's not enough, I'm not enough. When you're up early enough and you stop on your walk or your run and you take a moment and witness the sunrise, you're not thinking it's not enough, I'm not enough, more is better. When you suddenly have this, huge euphoric experience of the glory of nature, you're not thinking it's not enough, I'm not enough, more is better. So we know this space of profound sufficiency. And sufficiency is distinct from abundance. So I'm going to say abundance is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but sometimes abundance is the flip side of scarcity. It's more than we need. It's excess. It's, too many of this and too many of that because we're so afraid we won't get enough. So we get too many pairs of black pants or too many thises or too many that's because we're so afraid we won't have enough. So it can be the flip side of scarcity, not abundance, but excess. But what I'm talking about is the absolute beauty of enough, which is a precise experience, profound experience of being met by the universe with exactly what you need, which actually is happening all the time. But we're racing so fast towards more that we race right past enough. We don't even know it happened because in a consumer culture, there's no room for enough. But here's the principle that I know you want me to talk about, and it's called the principle of sufficiency. And it's this: when you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, which is what we're brainwashed to want more of, it frees up oceans of energy that's all tied up in the chase to turn and pay attention to what you already have. When you pay attention to what you already have, when you make a difference with what you already have, when you love what you already have, and when you share what you already have, it expands. So let me say that again. When you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, it frees up oceans of energy all tied up in the chase to turn and pay attention to what you already have. When you pay attention to what you already have, when you make a difference with what you already have, and when you share what you already have, it expands before your very eyes. So a short version of that long statement is: what you appreciate appreciates. What you appreciate appreciates. And that's a key to the deep and profound experience of being enough. And when you know that you're enough, when you appreciate that you are enough, you have enough, there is enough, it overflows into what I call natural abundance, because all you want to do is share it. All you want to do is contribute. All you want to do is collaborate. All you want to do is partner, because you have enough. You're not scrambling for more. You have enough, and what you want to do is share. And when you share, it expands. So it's kind of the opposite of what we think, but it's really profound, and you teach it every single day, my dear.
Well, I so appreciate this concept and this way of being. What we appreciate appreciates. That is so absolutely true. And
Mhm.
I couldn't be more appreciative of you. I could not be more appreciative of you. You are off doing all kinds of things together. You have invited me in to play with you in the Nobel Women's Initiative, where maybe you could speak for just a minute about what that is, because this is something. When you came along and offered this opportunity to me, it was something that I said, now that I feel committed to. It was something that I had wanted to do my whole life, was be able to have a big impact, and I didn't know how to do it. And then you showed up, so maybe you could speak just a moment about that.
Oh, I'd love to. Well, I am privileged, as are you, and to have a relationship with the women who've won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, is kind of the ultimate acknowledgement of a human being who's making a difference with their life. So it's such a privilege to have an opportunity to have a relationship with the women who've won the Nobel Peace Prize. And 6 of them came together some time ago to create something called the Nobel Women's Initiative, NWI, Nobel Women's Initiative. Anybody can look it up online. And the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize winners, of course, have huge initiatives on their plate. That's why they won the Nobel Prize. So they don't have a lot of extra time to work together, but they discovered that there were enough women that had won the Nobel Prize after 115 years of the prize being given. It mostly went to men. And then the world started to wake up. Oh my God, women are peacemakers too. In fact, they probably are the main peacemakers. And so women started winning the prize, and there were enough women who won the prize that a big meeting where all the Nobels were together, they began to see there's enough of us. Let's see what we could do together to actually shift the conversation about women and girls, spotlight really extraordinary examples of courage and effectiveness, and particularly address violence against women and girls in war zones, in oppression, sexual slavery, particularly sexual violence, and orchestrated institutional violence against women and girls. We could work together, and because we got the Nobel Prize, we have the cachet, we have the kind of visibility to go into some of these places that are where no one wants to even confront what's going on, like the Congo, like Liberia, like Guatemala, where the treatment, like Yemen, where the treatment of women and girls are so upsetting that most people don't want to even hear about it, but the Nobels have the courage to bring their light, their power, their visibility to especially the grassroots organizations, women's organizations working on the ground in these places, the Sudan, Yemen, Syria, Ukraine now, so that those grassroots women who are running incredibly difficult operations to support women and girls living in horrendous conditions, that they have resources, they have some attention from the media, their struggle is lifted up so that those of us who are so lucky, so privileged, so fortunate can be sister to sister with some of those women and girls and help them find a way out of their situation and transform conditions that oppress them. So you and I and a handful of other wonderful women have become the primary funders of, kind of privately, but quite beautifully, of the Nobel Women's Initiative, so that the Nobel women themselves have the financial resources to move quickly and boldly in whatever direction they need to intervene in a situation that's horrendously oppressing women and girls. So it's such a privilege. And these are Nobel women, they're people like Shirin Ebadi, who was the vice chairman of the Supreme Court in Iran, wanted the revolution under the Shah, and fought for it really. But then when the Ayatollah came in, he stripped her of her judgeship, made her the clerk in the very court that she presided over to humiliate her, and then she resigned and created a law firm to defend women who were getting arrested for driving a car or not wearing their veil or going out without a man. And then she finally had to leave her country because she was so horribly threatened, and terrible things happened to her and her staff. And so she lives in exile, and she's all about the rule of law for women. And she won the Nobel Prize in 2004. Or Lema Bowie, who won it for stopping the war in Liberia. So amazing women that you, Marci, and I have the opportunity to support and actually know and hang out with a little bit. Pretty cool.
Lynne, that is so beautiful. And these women of the Nobel Women's Initiative are just living such committed lives. And what I know is that we all can live committed lives. We all
Absolutely.
are called to different things. And wherever we are in our station in life, in our calling in life, that is what we're here to do. And we can all live in the miracle zone by living a more committed life. I imagine you would agree.
I totally agree. And I don't want to make it so lofty that people don't have access to this, because if you're a kindergarten teacher and you are even doing it for just 2 years, you can be so deeply committed to having an impact on those children in a way that they feel so seen, so acknowledged, so supported, so served, so listened to for who they really are, that they become the kind of human being that they want to be because you were their teacher. That's living a committed life. Or you're a waitress, and when you wait on a table, you make sure that the people at your table can feel the vibration of love and service and hospitality and warmth that's part of who you are when you take their order, when you bring them their food. You can make a commitment, no matter what your station or place in the world, to make the kind of difference that's lasting, that's profound, that brings the best out of you and brings the best out of everybody you touch. So you don't need to end world hunger. You don't need to end a war. You don't need to become the head of the Supreme Court. You can be you. And, I really want to say it's available to every human being. And in fact, at some point of your life, you've been that. And you can draw more of that to you and more of that out of who you are. And that's really the purpose of my book. And I know the purpose of Marci's extraordinary, incredible, miraculous work.
Oh, Lynne, thank you. I am feeling inspired. Anytime I'm with you, I feel more and more committed to what's being called here of me. And I thank you so much for being with us. And people can find you, Lynne, at the where can they find you for Living a Committed Life and The Soul of Money?
Well, you can put Living a Committed Life, and a little a page will come up, or the Amazon to buy the book will come up, or something will come up, or you can just put in my name, or you can put in soulofmoney.org, soulofmoney.org. And that's my institute. And that tells you everything, including, I'll just give a little bit of a plug to Pachamama Alliance, Pachamama, Pachamama, one word. Pachamama.org is our work in the Ecuadorian Amazon and the Peruvian Amazon to support Indigenous people who are protecting the most biodiverse place on Earth. So that's another wonderful thing that Marci's involved in too. And that's the work we do to really address the climate crisis, which I know we're all concerned about.
Mm. Well, Lynne, I may not be able to bestow upon you the Nobel Prize today, but I'd bestow upon you the Marci Prize.
The Marci Prize!
The Miracle Prize of the day for just being such an exquisite human being on this planet and
Thank you, Marci.
filled with love. So I send you my love and love to everyone today.
Thank you, Marci, and thank you, everybody.